I'll try to be quick, Leon. And a lot has been said already, so that really helps. So I want to look at my own university in the Netherlands, mainly some of the concrete responses that we are trying to develop in becoming more relational, more responsible, more relevant. We can use all these terms, more reflexive. And how do we do that in this kind of schizophrenic environment where on the one hand we're chasing the rankings and we're being measured based on performance and accountability is very important, and all these metrics and which kind of run in a different direction from what we're talking about here. And it's interesting that the management of universities are talking both sides. So how to mediate, navigate this tension is, I think, the biggest challenge. Another angle, and it's been mentioned by Colleen also and others, is this is a Dutch, but it's something done by the Dutch BBC not so long ago, 2 weeks, just before Christmas actually, where some people, program makers, came to Wageningen University and talked to me and some others about this notion of young people suffering from ecorexia, they called it, and eco-anxiety, climate stress, things like that. Because we are a life science university, we have a lot of people working on sustainability issues, and a lot of people, staff included, they're actually, it's not really a life science, it's become a kind of a death science university. People, studying extinction, decline, regression, and the disappearance of everything. So we're becoming experts on the disappearance of everything. And that's not a very, energizing way of doing science. And just being confronted with that every day on a daily basis, that leads to even depression. And so the question was in this program, how do we deal with this kind of anxiety in our university? And which was not an easy question, and it led to an interesting program, just a 5-minute slot on the news. But and I think we must recognize that this notion of environmental melancholia, the feeling of loss that more and more people are experiences, and Renee Lertzman in her book Environmental Melancholia speaks about this, is really entering all education, from early childhood, I think, all the way to higher education, and how to respond to this, and how to create more hopeful, how to kind of develop a pedagogy of hope in this time of fear, a culture of fear in a way that is around us, requires a pedagogy of hope, and how to develop that is critical. And we must recognize, I think, that our universities are very much preoccupied with innovation, and now we have this new term of responsible innovation. But we must look critically, what is it that we are strengthening with what we do and the kinds of questions that we ask, and what is it that we are ignoring or silencing? And George Monbiot, you'll probably know, put it like this, not so long ago, actually already 5 years ago. While we marvel at NASA's discoveries, we destroy our irreplaceable natural resources so we can buy pre-peeled bananas and smartphones for dogs. So what is the moral compass of our education and our research? And as you know, it's already Carrie, you referred to David Orr, who once said, if we don't reflect on that, then we are just developing more effective vandals of the earth. I think that's what the words he used. So the transition towards a more sustainable world where we can live more lightly on the earth, more caring, more mindful of others, other species and future generations. How do we engage young people and ourselves in that transition? And we must, I think, benefit and participate in the sustainability movement that is all around us, but it's not so easy for universities and schools to tap into. And so we have things like peer financing, local energy movements, local food movements, distributed manufacturing. There are new concepts emerging, often outside of the university, that we need to connect with. And they have to do with food, with governance, with spirituality, which was mentioned, that middle ground Colleen talked about. How can universities better connect? And that's what Wageningen University has been trying to do, to organize ways of teaching that kind of are more hybrid, blended forms of teaching, ecological, if you will, that connect these different spheres in society through a kind of co-creative research and education process. Urban living labs is kind of a popular concept nowadays. This is from the Amsterdam Institute for Advanced Metropolitan Solutions, where Wageningen University, Delft University, MIT has been commissioned by the city of Amsterdam and the province of North Holland to find ways to respond to metropolitan sustainability challenges, combining these 5 spheres of society in a meaningful way. So these living labs are often a temporary, experimental, ecological, or ecologies of learning that engage multiple stakeholders in the co-creation, testing, and evaluating of solutions to sustainability challenge in a real world setting. And part of this is often also equipping or capacity building of these stakeholders, also in, for instance, doing civic science. We use civic science rather than citizen science, because it's not so much driven by science, it's driven by citizens and their concerns, their matters of concerns. So, and one thing we've done at Wageningen University is developing what we call, it's not a very good name, academic consultancy training. It's a course, 6-credit course, where we have on the one side organizations in and around the university that articulate questions or concerns that they have, that they would like people from the university, students and staff, to engage with, to help them with. And often they don't have the funding for commissioning research, but we have the resources to invite and to contribute. Okay, I'll start over again. So this is a course where we can kind of combine societal questions with the learning of the students as well as the research of staff. And often the students do research in this context. So you have teams of students, interdisciplinary teams from different study programs, applying in a way for a question that has been brokered. So you have teams of students that are connected to scientists and coaches that help them in their group dynamics and in the way they work together as a group. And they have coaches from the university in terms of content who represent the key topic that they're investigating. And there's a team brokering the relationship between society and the university organizing all this. And the unique thing about it is that all the master students at Wageningen University participate in this course. So it leads to a tremendous impact in the local community and the visibility of the university that is really addressing the local concerns. So they get their own office when they have to apply for the job, so to speak, with other groups that are also interested in working on a particular question. They work on certain skills while they do this. They also have alternative forms of assessment. They are assessed on the quality of their group work, how they work together by the group coach. They're assessed on the quality of their scientific work by the content coach. They're also assessed by the impact and the potential impact of their advice that they give to the commissioner, by the commissioner, and they assess themselves, how they feel they work together and how much they thought the project actually helped them learn. So this is another way of organizing more community-engaged forms of education that focus on local sustainability challenges. I'll skip this, but this is a way of institutionalizing this type of work. And there's lots of resources that have been developed over time for the students when they engage in these kinds of questions. This is from our Center for Development Innovation. The multi-stakeholder process guide has lots of principles, activities that they can use to develop certain skills, like working with power, fostering participatory learning, dealing with conflict, but also finding other ways of investigating these kinds of issues. This is another toolkit that's been developed through a Wageningen University project as a part of Marie Curie ITN network. SUSPlays, arts-based methods for transformative engagement, all open access available for students, but anyone in the world to use. I'll skip this one, but these are 3 videos that were developed as a result of a project on imaginative disruptions, where we're really looking at how can we develop this idea of disruptiveness and transgression using the arts. And the disruptive capacity building, it's mentioned in the title, I'm not talking much about it, is a response to this emphasis that we see in climate change on adaptive capacity building, where we kind of say the world is changing, it's inevitable, we must adapt. But what we must also learn is to disrupt the structures that force us to chase and run and respond all the time. And that requires disruptive capacity building. And these are some of the outcomes that we are pursuing in this type of work, the kinds of sustainabilities that are needed. And I will share the slides, I think, Leon, that's possible. But some are more normative, existential, some are more related to the understanding and the knowledge around sustainability. Some have to do with change and innovation, and others more with critique and transgression and transformation. And then we get kind of, this is from the UNESCO Global Education Monitor Report, the kind of a whole system that is kind of breathing sustainability, where this relational way of learning becomes normalized. And if we can do that, I think we will create generative spaces for regeneration that is so critical. And the Sustainable Development Goals kind of speak to all these things, I think, as long as we can see them as interconnected and related and not as a new way of reducing the world into new silos where every SDG represents another area, because then we kind of fall back in the old way of thinking. So these are some closing suggestions. I'm not going to read them to you. You've already seen too many bullets. And bullets can be deadly. And death by PowerPoint is not a good idea. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Leon. Thank you.